The Galactic Council had ruled the galaxy for centuries. Formed from the most ancient and powerful species in the universe, it governed countless star systems, ensuring peace, order, and stability. The Council's members believed they controlled everything except Earth. Earth was a young, unremarkable planet located in the outer rim of the galaxy. It had been classified as primitive but stable. The Council had kept a close watch on it for centuries, monitoring its progress. Humans were still trapped in their wars, pollution, and technological infancy. There was no need to worry about them, the Council thought. The humans had no spacefaring capability. They were no threat. But that was about to change. The Council had a system for monitoring planets, a network of satellites and advanced sensors that could detect even the smallest changes in a planet's activity. For years, Earth had been a quiet planet, its technological growth slow but steady. No surprises. But recently, there had been odd signals coming from the planet, anomalies that the Council had never seen before. At first, it was just small bursts of technology, a sudden leap in artificial intelligence, strange calculations that didn't match any known physics. Then, there was an event in the atmosphere, a sudden and unexplained reversal of the planet's climate crisis. It had taken humanity centuries to reach this point, but within a few months, Earth had healed itself, almost overnight. The Council was puzzled. They hadn't expected Earth to evolve so quickly. But they brushed it off. It was probably just a fluke, they thought. The planet would fall back into its old patterns. They had seen it happen before with other developing worlds. However, the Council's unease grew when they noticed something far more troubling. The humans were getting smarter. Much smarter. It wasn't just the technology or the climate reversal, it was the humans themselves. They were working together in ways that hadn't been seen before. Old conflicts began to fade as humans focused their efforts on a single goal: survival. The Council decided to investigate further. They sent a diplomatic probe, a small, unarmed ship meant to make contact and observe. The ship entered Earth's orbit undetected, moving silently through the planet's atmosphere. But the probe never made it back. There was no explosion, no transmission. It simply vanished. The Council was concerned. They tried to contact the probe, but it was as if Earth had erased it from existence. No debris, no trace, just silence. They sent another probe. This time, they chose a different approach, a stealth ship designed to remain hidden from even the most advanced technology. But it didn't return either. Once again, it simply disappeared. The Council was shaken. They had underestimated Earth. The technology on the planet wasn't just advanced. It was dangerous. How had humans achieved this? How had they become so powerful, so quickly? At this point, the Council was on high alert. They called a special session to discuss the situation. The members sat around the Great Council table, their faces illuminated by the dim light of the galaxy outside. An air of uncertainty hung in the room. "We've made a grave mistake," said one of the Council members, a tall, gray-skinned species with dark, reflective eyes. "We should have never underestimated Earth. They've clearly advanced beyond anything we expected." Another member, a cold-blooded reptilian species, nodded. "The humans are unpredictable. They may be primitive, but they've proven to be resourceful, and now they've developed technology that even we cannot detect. This is no longer a simple oversight." A third member, a frail being with delicate wings, spoke quietly. "What if this is not an accident? What if Earth is sending us a message, a warning?" The room fell silent. The thought had crossed everyone's mind. Could Earth be aware of the Council's surveillance? Could they have known all along that they were being watched? Finally, one of the most powerful members of the Council, a massive telepathic species, spoke. "We need to make contact. We cannot allow this to go on. We will send an envoy to Earth, a peaceful one. Perhaps we can negotiate with them, offer them the chance to join the Council. We will extend an olive branch." But as soon as the words left his mouth, a message appeared on every member's communication screen. It was simple, it was clear, and it made every member of the Galactic Council freeze in shock. "Stop watching us. We are awake." The message had come from Earth. The council was stunned. For a moment, no one spoke. The weight of the words hung in the air like a cold shadow. "What does this mean?" whispered the frail, winged member. "It means they know," the telepathic member replied slowly. "It means they've been aware of us for a long time, and now they're no longer afraid." Another message came immediately after. "Your probe is gone. Your fleet will follow." The council was left speechless. How did Earth know this? How did they predict the movements of the council's ships? Was Earth simply a primitive species after all? Or was there something far more dangerous lurking beneath their surface? In that moment, the council realized that they had made a terrible mistake. They had assumed that Earth was just another unimportant planet, nothing more than a dot in the vast galaxy. They had failed to understand the humans, their potential, and their determination. Earth wasn't just awake. It was ready. The message from Earth sent shockwaves across the Galactic Council. For centuries, the Council had been the unquestioned rulers of the galaxy, controlling trade, diplomacy, and the fate of countless species. They had never before encountered a species as bold as the humans. Earth had never been more than a faint blip on their radar. Until now. The Council's highest members convened for an emergency meeting, their faces reflecting a mix of anger, fear, and confusion. The telepathic species that led the Council, its massive form glowing softly in the dimly lit chamber, addressed the group. "This is no coincidence," the telepath said in a deep voice. "Earth has done something no species has ever done. They've ignored our surveillance, bypassed our probes, and now they send us threats. Direct threats." One of the reptilian members, a species known for its cold-blooded nature and military might, hissed in frustration. "They cannot be a threat. How could a planet so isolated, so young, challenge us?" "They already have," replied the telepath. "Our ships are gone, and now they know we are coming. We are no longer in control." The council was silent. The disappearance of 2 ships in quick succession was unlike anything they had ever experienced. No explosion, no debris. The ships had simply vanished without a trace, as if Earth had erased them from existence. How could something so advanced, so far beyond any technology they had known, be hidden on such a seemingly insignificant planet? "They must be using a kind of defense system we've never encountered," the frail winged member suggested, her voice trembling with uncertainty. "Perhaps they have cloaking technology even more advanced than ours, or some kind of weapon that can destroy ships without leaving a trace." The reptilian member growled lowly, his eyes narrowing. "Impossible. No species, not even the most ancient ones, can develop that level of power so quickly. Earth is not advanced enough." The telepathic species remained calm. "We cannot ignore this. We must respond. We must learn what they have, and more importantly, why they have chosen to reveal themselves to us now." The debate continued for hours, but the council knew they had to act quickly. They could no longer afford to underestimate Earth. They decided to send a new fleet, a larger, more powerful one. This time they would not only attempt to contact Earth, but they would also attempt to subdue its growing strength, to bring the humans under the Council's control before they could become a real threat. The fleet was launched in secret. Unlike previous ships, this one was designed to be completely undetectable by any known technology. It moved through the stars, its hull coated in advanced quantum cloaking technology, which allowed it to remain hidden from even the most sophisticated sensors. The fleet arrived within Earth's solar system under complete stealth, but as the fleet entered Earth's orbit, a strange feeling began to take over the minds of the Council's commanders. There was a palpable tension in the air, as though something unseen was watching them, waiting. The fleet's commander, a tall and sleek insectoid species, gave the order to land. But before the fleet could deploy its troops, the unimaginable happened. Every ship, every shuttle, and every drone was suddenly struck by a powerful force that rendered them useless. The fleet had been neutralized in an instant. Not a single ship escaped. Not a single message was sent. The Council's commanders were left staring at their screens in horror, unable to comprehend what had just happened. In the empty silence that followed, another message from Earth appeared on their communication network. "This was your second mistake." The telepathic leader stared at the screen in disbelief. It was as if Earth had anticipated everything they had done, even before they did it. How could this be? The humans were just a young species. How could they possess such unimaginable power? The reptilian member spoke first, his voice filled with anger. "This is a provocation. We have lost 2 ships and now a fleet. We cannot let this go. We must strike back." The telepath held up a massive, clawed hand, signaling for silence. "No," he said slowly, his mind racing. "We need to understand. If we attack again without understanding the enemy, we risk destroying ourselves. Earth is not like any other species we've encountered." The frail winged member spoke softly, her voice filled with dread. "But why now? Why did they wait so long? If they were this powerful, why didn't they act sooner?" The telepath paused, considering the question. Perhaps they've been preparing for something. Perhaps they knew that one day the council would come to them. They didn't act in haste, they waited until they were ready. Another message appeared on the council's communication network. It was short, but it made the air feel colder. "We gave you a warning. Now we make our own decisions." The council members exchanged nervous glances. It was clear that Earth had crossed a line. They had not only developed technology far beyond anything the council had anticipated, but they had also shown themselves to be wise enough to play a long game. The humans had not sought power or dominance, they had simply waited quietly until they were ready to act. "We must respond," the reptilian leader said, his tone hardening. "They have humiliated us. The council cannot be seen as weak." The telepathic species remained silent for a moment, his mind working through the possibilities. "We cannot afford to attack blindly. We must learn what they know, what their capabilities are, and why they've chosen this path." Another message appeared on the council screens, this time from Earth. It was calm and precise, as though Earth was speaking directly to the council's fears. "We don't want war. We don't need to fight. But if you push us, we will defend ourselves." It was a simple statement, but one that carried the weight of 100 planets. The humans weren't asking for peace. They were stating that they no longer needed permission to exist. They no longer needed the council's approval to defend their home. "Prepare for a new kind of diplomacy," the telepath finally said, his voice grave. "This will not be an easy path, but we must find a way to meet Earth as equals, or we will face a future we are not ready for." The council was forced to acknowledge the truth. Earth had revealed something that no one could ignore. The humans were not just another species in the galaxy. They had become something far more dangerous, something that no one, not even the Galactic Council, could control. The game had changed, and now Earth was no longer a silent planet. The Galactic Council was in turmoil. For the first time in history, an unremarkable species, humans, had upended their power. Earth had been a place they ignored, a backwater planet with little interest to anyone. But now that planet had thrown a wrench into the Council's carefully controlled galaxy. The message from Earth had been clear. "We are awake." The Council's response had been equally sharp, but they knew their previous tactics had failed. The ships, the probes, they were all gone without a trace, seemingly erased by some unseen force. The humans were no longer simply a primitive species on the fringes of galactic affairs. They had become a force to be reckoned with. Behind closed doors, the Council's highest officials gathered, their minds working at full speed. What had Earth done to rise so quickly? How had they surpassed every expectation? And more troublingly, how had they developed the ability to neutralize fleets without even being detected? The answers were difficult to come by. The humans had never made their advancements known to the galaxy at large. They had not spread their influence beyond their planet. They had not tried to conquer, to expand. They had simply worked in secret, quietly building something no one had noticed. The telepathic species that led the Council closed their eyes in concentration. The thoughts of the entire room echoed in his mind. He knew that it was not just the advanced technology that made Earth a threat, it was the humans themselves. They had learned how to think in ways the Council had never anticipated. They had evolved differently than any other species in the galaxy. For centuries, the Council had ruled by controlling the flow of information. They ensured that no species became too powerful without their approval. If a species advanced too quickly, they controlled their development, guided their progress. But Earth had done something the Council hadn't expected. Humans had evolved through chaos. Their history was filled with war, poverty, disease, and political strife. But instead of being weakened by it, the humans had learned how to overcome. They had turned their challenges into strength. Their constant struggles had made them resilient. And that resilience was what had allowed them to survive and grow. It wasn't just their technological advancement that had shocked the Council. It was their ability to adapt. The humans had faced a climate disaster, an existential threat to their entire species. But instead of waiting for someone to solve their problems, they had figured out how to fix it themselves. They had used AI and cutting-edge science to reverse the damage to their planet. No other species had done this, not with so little. While other advanced species relied on peace, stability, and order to progress, the humans thrived in the face of hardship. They had built a society that found strength in survival, not in comfort. The winged member of the Council spoke softly. What if they are not just hiding their power? What if they've been waiting, learning, preparing? The reptilian species hissed in agreement. It is clear now. They have not reached out to us, not for conquest, not for power. They have been building quietly without interference. They've been watching us, just as we have watched them. The telepath nodded. The humans understand something we do not. They are not bound by the same rules we are. They have grown strong not through peace, but through adversity. The Council had no answers, only questions. How had Earth managed this growth without anyone noticing? How had they achieved such advancements without broadcasting their power across the stars? Earth's sudden rise seemed more like a challenge than an evolution. While the Council debated, on Earth, humanity continued its quiet transformation. They had begun to realize that their planet was no longer just a small, isolated world. It was part of a vast, interconnected universe, one that the Galactic Council had been watching and shaping for centuries. But humanity wasn't waiting for permission to enter it. They had found their place in the stars on their own terms. The Accord, the coalition of human scientists, engineers, and the artificial intelligences they had created, had spent decades building an infrastructure of peace, security, and autonomy. Hidden beneath Earth's surface and in its orbit were facilities designed not just for research, but for defense. Humans had developed AI systems more advanced than any the Council had ever seen. These AIs were not mere tools, but self-aware beings that worked alongside humanity, creating solutions to problems that had plagued the species for centuries. Climate change, resource scarcity, disease. These challenges had all been addressed by the collaboration between humans and their AIs. But there was something deeper at play. The Accord's real secret was not just technology. It was humanity's ability to adapt and innovate. The most powerful force on Earth wasn't the AI or the technology. It was the human spirit. It was their unshakable will to survive and thrive. No matter the odds, this had been the key to Earth's success. While the Council had been busy watching, humanity had been quietly learning, improving and developing in ways that no one could have predicted. The Accord had also prepared for the possibility of the Council's reaction. They had built defenses, not just in the form of weapons, but in the form of intelligence and strategy. The humans were prepared for the unexpected, and they were ready to fight if they had to. But they were not looking for war. They were looking for freedom. Freedom from control. Freedom to make their own decisions. Back on the Council's world, the debate grew more heated. The members knew they could no longer afford to ignore the humans. They could not simply erase them from the galaxy like they had done with other species. Earth had evolved in a way that was both unexpected and dangerous. "We have two choices," said the telepath. "We can either continue to oppose them, to try to control them as we have every other species before them, or we can try something new, work with them, understand their strengths and weaknesses, and find a way to coexist." The reptilian leader growled. Coexist? They are a threat, a species that grows stronger by the day. How can we coexist with a species that won't follow the rules? The telepath nodded slowly. We must learn what makes them different. Their strength comes from their struggle, from their resilience. We must understand this, or we will be swept aside. The council was left with no easy answers. Earth had shown them that the galaxy was no longer in their control. Humanity's growth wasn't just a surprise. It was a challenge to everything the council had believed in, and the biggest question of all remained: what would Earth do next? The tension in the Galactic Council's chambers had reached its peak. The threat from Earth was no longer a question of if, but when. The humans had shown the Council something terrifying, something no one had expected. In their swift retaliation, they had proven that Earth was not a naive species waiting to be controlled. Earth had grown too powerful, too quickly, and now the Council's once unquestioned control over the galaxy was being challenged. The telepathic leader of the Council, a being of immense mental strength, looked out over the chamber. His mind was filled with questions and doubts. Could they afford to continue underestimating the humans? Should they push forward with an attack, or should they rethink their strategy and attempt peace? His thoughts were interrupted as a cold, reptilian voice spoke up. Peace? You want peace with them? The speaker was one of the older, more battle-hardened members of the Council, a species known for its aggressive nature and tactical brilliance. The humans have already shown us what they are capable of. They've neutralized 2 fleets without even breaking a sweat. This is not a negotiation, it's war. The telepath's gaze remained calm, despite the venom in the reptilian's words. War is a dangerous path. It's one we've avoided for millennia. Earth is no ordinary species. We don't even fully understand their capabilities. But we can't keep backing down. If we do, the other species in the galaxy will lose respect for the Council. We will be seen as weak, and that is something we cannot afford. The reptilian countered, his eyes flashing with cold fury. Our fleets are ready. We can strike before Earth has time to prepare further. The sooner we act, the better. The telepath did not respond immediately. Instead, he closed his eyes, focusing his mind on the deep currents of thought flowing between him and his fellow council members. He could feel the anger and fear swirling in the room. Fear was a dangerous thing. It clouded judgment, and in his experience, fear was often the first step toward disaster. If we strike too quickly, we may provoke Earth into something we cannot control, the telepath said, his voice steady and measured. Their response to our previous attempts has shown that they will defend themselves, and they will not hesitate. If we continue down this path, we risk losing everything. A different voice spoke up, a smooth, calm tone cutting through the tension. It was a member of the scientific faction of the Council, known for their logical reasoning and careful analysis. The question, then, is not whether we act, but how. If we are to engage with Earth, we must first understand their technology, their mindset, and their strategy. We cannot win this fight through brute force alone. We need to outthink them. The reptilian leader snorted. You would have us sit here and discuss strategy while Earth continues to grow stronger? This is a waste of time. Our fleets are more than enough to crush them. But the scientific leader was undeterred. This isn't about fleets or firepower. It's about understanding the enemy. We've seen that Earth does not fight like any other species we've encountered. Their power lies not in their size or numbers, but in their ability to adapt and evolve. They've shown us that they can surprise us at every turn. The telepath nodded thoughtfully. Exactly. We must understand their strategy if we hope to defeat them. But how? They've hidden their advancements from us for so long. We don't even know how they destroyed our fleets, let alone what other surprises they might have prepared. There was a long silence as the council members exchanged wary glances. No one had any clear answers. Earth had taken them all by surprise. The reptilian leader finally broke the silence. Fine. If you want to waste time on analysis, then go ahead. But know this. Earth won't wait. They will only grow stronger. The longer we hesitate, the more difficult it will be to contain them. The debate raged on, but despite the voices of dissent, the council members knew that the decision could not be rushed. They had never faced an adversary like this before. Even the most experienced military leaders in the galaxy could not predict Earth's next move. Meanwhile, on Earth, the atmosphere was tense but focused. The humans had no intention of being drawn into a war with the Galactic Council. For decades, they had worked in secret to build their defenses, not out of a desire for conquest, but for survival. But now, they could feel the weight of the galaxies gaze upon them. The Council's fleets had been destroyed, but that was just the beginning. They had sent a message, but would the Council listen, or would they escalate things further? The Accord, humanity's coalition of scientists, engineers, and AI, had already begun preparations for the next phase. They knew that war with the Council could lead to unimaginable destruction. But Earth's survival depended on one thing: remaining free. There was no time for panic. No time for fear. The humans were ready, but they would not strike unless forced to. They had learned over centuries how to navigate through conflict, how to adapt and survive in the face of overwhelming odds. One of the leaders of the Accord, a human scientist named Dr. Ilara, stood before a large screen displaying real-time data from across the solar system. The message from the Galactic Council had been received, and it was clear that they were preparing for more. They were not ready to accept humanity's terms. Earth will not bow to threats, Dr. Ilara muttered to herself, her fingers dancing over the controls. We will defend ourselves, but we will also make sure they understand the consequences of pushing us. The humans had already begun strengthening their defenses. The advanced AI that had helped them reverse their environmental crises had now been adapted for military applications. Ships capable of withstanding even the most powerful weapons of the Council were under construction. The humans were ready to fight, but only if there was no other choice. Back in the Council's chambers, the debate was nearing its end. The reptilian faction was growing increasingly impatient, but the telepath remained calm, focused on the long-term strategy. He knew that this was a defining moment for the galaxy. The Council had always ruled through control, but now they were faced with an unpredictable new player. We have one final option, the telepath said, his voice soft but firm. We can extend an offer for peace. We can send an emissary to Earth, one who will speak directly with them. It is not an easy choice, but it may be the only way to avoid total conflict. The reptilian leader snarled in frustration. You're asking us to back down, to show weakness. I'm asking us to be smarter, the telepath replied. Peace is not weakness. It's understanding. We cannot fight what we don't understand. The Council was silent. No one spoke. Immediately. Finally, the reptilian leader gave a grudging nod. Send the emissary, he said. But know this. We are running out of time. The tension in the Galactic Council's chamber had reached a fever pitch. A decision had been made. The Council would send an emissary to Earth. It was the last option left, and one that could either pave the way for peace or lead to further conflict. The telepathic leader of the Council had been the strongest advocate for this approach, believing that understanding was the only way forward. But not all were convinced. The reptilian species that had been so eager to go to war now stood in silence. The other members of the Council watched carefully as the leader of their emissary team, a sleek and diplomatic being from a peaceful species, prepared to depart. The emissary's mission was simple: to reach out to Earth, understand its goals, and negotiate terms of peace. We have to make contact now, the telepathic leader said, his voice calm but firm. We cannot afford to wait any longer. Earth's message was clear. They want peace on their terms. We must show them that we are willing to listen. One of the Council's military leaders growled, and if they refuse peace? If they continue to challenge us? The telepath looked the leader in the eye. Then we will understand why. We will not repeat the mistakes of the past. We will go to them with open hands, not weapons. On Earth, the atmosphere was tense, but controlled. The message from the Galactic Council had arrived, promising an emissary. a peaceful representative, no doubt to attempt to convince the humans to join the greater galactic order. But the people of Earth, and more importantly, the Accord, had already made up their minds. The Accord had never been a government in the traditional sense. It wasn't a military organization or a single ruling body. It was a collaboration of the brightest minds in science, technology, and artificial intelligence. Together, they had rebuilt Earth's ecosystem, cured diseases, and created a society that was independent and self-sufficient. The Accord wasn't interested in joining the Galactic Council. They had no desire to be ruled. They had built their power through resilience, not conquest. Dr. Ilara, the lead scientist of the Accord, stood in front of a massive screen in a secure facility deep beneath the surface of Earth's largest continent. The screen showed the incoming signal from the Council's emissary ship, which was now entering Earth's orbit. It was a simple ship, nothing like the massive fleets the Council had sent before. It appeared unarmed, and Dr. Ilara was sure it was meant as a gesture of peace. But peace was not what Earth was interested in. The planet had its own plan. "We cannot trust them," Dr. Ilara muttered under her breath. "They've already tried to control us once. Who's to say they won't try again once they've learned everything about us?" Her assistant, a humanoid, AI named Sentinel, spoke in a voice that was smooth and composed. "It is logical to assume that the Galactic Council will attempt to use this meeting to their advantage. However, it is also possible that they have learned from their earlier missteps and now seek a peaceful resolution." Dr. Ilara turned to face the AI, her expression hard. "It doesn't matter. We have no interest in their resolution. We've survived for so long on our own. We've already made our place in the universe, and we will not be told what to do." Sentinel's digital eyes scanned the data. "I agree. However, it is prudent to at least hear them out. Their emissary will arrive within hours. We should prepare to meet them, but we must make it clear that Earth is not for sale." The Council's emissary ship entered Earth's atmosphere, its sleek, unarmed design cutting through the air like a blade. It was an impressive sight, but to the humans watching from the surface, it was just another ship, a symbol of something they had already rejected. As the ship touched down on Earth's surface, the Accord's leaders were already waiting. Dr. Ilara and her team stood at the front, ready to meet the emissary. They were dressed in simple but formal clothing, reflecting their readiness to engage, but also their lack of fear. The emissary would understand that Earth was not a world to be intimidated. The door to the emissary's ship opened with a soft hiss, and a figure emerged. It was tall, humanoid, but with subtle alien features, sharp angles to its face and deep, intelligent eyes. The emissary was calm, measured, and most importantly, unarmed. It walked toward Dr. Ilara and the team, stopping a few meters away. The air was thick with anticipation. Neither side spoke at first. The emissary finally broke the silence, its voice clear and formal. "I come in peace. I represent the Galactic Council. The Council wishes to establish a new relationship with your planet, one of mutual respect and cooperation. The old ways no longer serve the universe, and the Council believes that Earth's future lies among the stars." Dr. Ilara studied the emissary carefully, her eyes narrowing slightly. "The Galactic Council wants cooperation?" she asked. "After everything that has happened, after sending fleets to destroy our ships? You think we are interested in cooperation?" The emissary's expression remained unchanged. "The Council made mistakes. It underestimated your planet and your people. Now it seeks to correct those mistakes. Earth has power, and the Council believes that power should be used to build a better future. Together." Dr. Ilara crossed her arms, her mind racing. The emissary's words were polite, but she could sense the underlying pressure. The Council was not asking, they were offering, but with the expectation of compliance. "We don't need the Council to build a better future," she said firmly. "We've already done that ourselves. We've built a future that doesn't rely on anyone else." The emissary's eyes softened as if it understood. "I understand your hesitation, but Earth is not an isolated world anymore. The galaxy is interconnected. If you remain apart, you risk being left behind when the tides of history change. Dr. Alara's voice was calm, but resolute. Earth is not interested in being part of your galaxy. We're not here to follow the rules of the Galactic Council. Earth will chart its own course, and if the Council insists on pushing us, we will defend ourselves. We've built the power to do so. The emissary looked at her for a long moment. There was no anger in its gaze, only an understanding that had not been there before. It took a deep breath before responding. Then, Earth has already made its decision. But know this, there will be others watching. Your decision will not just affect your planet, but the entire galaxy. Dr. Alara nodded. And we're ready for that. Earth is not afraid of the galaxy, but we will not be controlled by anyone. Not by you, not by the Council, and not by anyone else. The emissary stood still for a moment before turning and walking back toward its ship. The humans watched it leave, and Dr. Alara felt the weight of the moment. She had made her point. Earth was not interested in peace through submission. They would defend their world on their terms. The Council had tried to control them. Now, Earth had made it clear. They would control their own destiny. The emissary's ship had left Earth's surface, its sleek form disappearing into the sky. The moment it departed, the silence in the room felt heavier than ever. Dr. Alara and the members of the Accord stood still, processing the weight of what had just transpired. The emissary had come in peace, but their offer had been rejected, and yet there was no sense of victory in the room. Earth had made its position clear. It would not be ruled. It would not be part of the Galactic Council. Earth would chart its own course, and if that meant standing alone against the galaxy, then so be it. But the decision was not without consequences. As the day wore on, the message from Earth rippled throughout the galaxy. The Council had expected resistance, but they had not expected this. The humans, who had once been seen as weak and divided, had shown an unexpected strength, one that was not just about power, but about determination and resilience. Earth had not just rejected their offer, they had rejected the very idea of being controlled. The telepathic leader of the Galactic Council stood on the balcony of the Council's Great Hall, looking out over the stars. His mind was filled with the gravity of what had just happened. For centuries, the Council had operated under the belief that power could be controlled, that strength could be dictated. But the humans had broken that illusion. They had shown that a species could survive and even thrive without the Council's interference. You were right, a voice from behind him said. He turned to see one of his fellow Council members, a member from the scientific faction. She had been quiet for most of the debates, but now there was a somber understanding in her eyes. The humans, they are unlike any species we've encountered. They don't fit the mold of what we thought was possible, she said softly. The telepath nodded slowly. Yes, they have shown us that power is not always about fleets and armies. It is about the will to survive, the will to exist on your own terms. We failed to understand that. We underestimated them, the scientific member agreed. We thought their isolation, their struggles, made them weak, but they were simply learning. They were growing. They were evolving, the telepath said. And they are no longer a species we can control. We may have been able to dominate the galaxy, but Earth has made its own path. Back on Earth, life continued. The people were aware of the Council's reaction, but there was no fear. The Accord had done its part. Earth was not alone. The humans had each other, and they had their advancements. They had technology that could rival even the oldest civilizations in the galaxy. But more importantly, they had the strength of unity. Dr. Alara stood in a quiet room, looking out at the horizon. The sun was setting over the world she had helped to rebuild. The planet was thriving, a far cry from the broken world it had once been. Earth was no longer just a planet in the galaxy. It was a beacon of what could be achieved when a species refused to be broken. The communications consoles in the room blinked with incoming messages. The Council had sent another transmission. It was a simple message, but it carried weight. Earth has made its decision. The Galactic Council acknowledges your strength. You are no longer an outsider. Your future is yours to decide. The words were almost too simple, too calm. But Dr. Ilara knew the meaning behind them. The Council had made their acknowledgement, and Earth was no longer a planet to be controlled or manipulated. It had been accepted, not into the Council, but into its own place in the galaxy. She turned to her assistant, Sentinel, who had been quietly monitoring the communication channels. "It's done then," she said, her voice steady but filled with an unspoken weight. "Yes," Sentinel replied. "Earth has established itself as a power in its own right. The Council has recognized that. There is no going back now." "But what about the future?" Dr. Ilara asked, her gaze shifting back to the screen that showed the stars beyond. "What happens now?" "The future is up to Earth," Sentinel answered. "It will no longer be dictated by the Council. It will be shaped by those who inhabit it." Dr. Ilara stood in silence for a long moment, letting the words sink in. Earth had faced the darkness of the unknown, the weight of centuries of struggle, and now it stood on its own, ready to face whatever came next. The future was not something that would be handed to them. It was something they would create themselves. Meanwhile, in the Galactic Council's chambers, the members had gathered once more. The telepath's eyes scanned the faces of the beings who had once ruled with unquestioned power. The time for decisions had passed. Earth had made its choice, and the galaxy would have to adjust. "We have faced something we didn't anticipate," the telepath said. "Earth has proven to be more than a challenge. They are a force of their own. It is not just their technology or their will, it is their unity, their ability to adapt and grow." One of the more aggressive members spoke up. "This is not over. We cannot just let them go free. They have disrupted the balance. The galaxy must be united and Earth must be brought into the fold." "No," the telepath responded firmly. "The galaxy does not need to be united under our control. It needs to evolve on its own terms. Earth has shown us that. They are not like the others, and we must respect that." The room fell silent as the Council members took in the gravity of the telepath's words. The battle for control had been lost, but the war for understanding had just begun. The galaxy was not a single entity. It was a collection of worlds, each with its own path, its own future, and Earth had found its own way. Back on Earth, life continued to flourish. The message had been received by all. Humanity had no need for the Galactic Council's approval or control. They had proven that they could rise above their struggles and create a future of their own making. The stars were no longer just distant lights in the sky. They were a destination. The galaxy was theirs to explore, not as subjects of a greater power, but as equals determined to chart their own path. And as Earth looked to the stars, it was no longer an outsider. It was a beacon of strength, resilience, and the will to survive, ready to face the unknown and ready to shape the future, one step at a time.